Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Jouar, and today is Friday, April 5th, 2024, and I've got the most excellent Joshua Vergara here with me. Hi, JV, how are you?
I'm doing all right. It's a nice, I appreciate the time that we are recording this because sometimes it's like 7, 8 a.m. and I'm like, no, this is perfect for me.
I couldn't do that. You know, I'm like you, West Coast, the best coast. We chill out on this coast. So now I figured 11 is a relatively decent time. We've had a chance to get tea and maybe some breakfast. We're good to go kind of thing, you know? So
Still got my tea right here. We're good.
Yeah, same with my coffee. Welcome back, JV. I want to talk about news. A lot of it is rumors, Samsung rumors, a lot of them this week. But before we jump into the news, you know, you've been reviewing some interesting laptops. And, you know, we don't talk laptops that much on the show, but I think sometimes, because we're all kind of like on our MacBooks, you know, a lot of us creators are like Apple-centric. But you and I, we sometimes get the PCs in and we sometimes review them, and they're sometimes really amazing. And I watch your two ASUS. Is it ROG or how do you say it?
It is an ROG lineup, yeah, right. But ROG Zephyrus.
Zephyrus, that's it. 14 and 16. And I will link to the videos in the show notes. But tell us about these devices, because you obviously are on a Mac as well sometimes, but I know you've been doing some video editing on PCs at times as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, because you kind of look at it more from a creator's perspective, although I'm sure you've done some gaming, right?
Oh yeah, of course. What I love about it used to be a thing. We used to be all about the gaming PCs because it does have the horsepower to be able to power some video editing and whatnot, if not all of the video editing, really. But these laptops are so interesting because ASUS, and by the way, I love the pronunciation that you had because it's the one that I've had for years, but my comment section always tries to steer me in a different direction.
How do you say it?
I always thought it was ASUS because it's Pegasus. I was told that by people who work there, but apparently they are okay with it being ASUS now. So the hard A.
I feel bad.
I think they're okay with it, but like I've said ASUS for so long.
So I was asking you about the ROG part because I used to call them ROG, and people got really mad at me in the comments, right?
I have gotten
and
that
I'm sorry,
too.
guys. Like, I'm not a hardcore gamer person, so to me, I'm like, I know it's Republic of Gamers, but I'm thinking, I'm like, ROG. Do you really want to spell that out? Like, so I was like, let's be cool and call it ROG. Oh my. I got called on this, and I appreciate you guys calling me on that. Like, I need to do the right thing. It's like I say Nokia, I don't say Nokia, right? And you know, now maybe I should say ASUS instead of ASUS. Is that what you're saying?
ASUS, yeah. Apparently ASUS is the way to go.
So ASUS is the way. So I had it right.
Yeah. So ASUS, they've shifted things a little bit. So they've had their Zephyrus G14 and G16 lineup that were beloved mobile gaming powerhouses.
I remember the one with the Matrix in the back that they launched at CES, I want to say 19 or 20, where like I at the time thought, oh, this is cool. I want one of those. And I did a hands-on video at CES that said like Mobile Tech Podcast scrolling on the thing.
Yes. Now, the thing is, they've kind of moved away from that because I guess, so ASUS is doing this interesting thing with all of their products, I feel like, in the ROG line, where they're kind of pulling it back a little bit. So instead of going hardcore into the gamer styling, they actually have just this one slash on the back, or on the cover, I should say, that has some LEDs in it, but that's it. And the design of the laptop is a lot thinner. It's way sleeker. It in a way, I mean, a lot of people are going to make the comparison all the time that it's like the MacBook of gaming laptops, but I guess it's a fair thing to say. Ultimately, though, I just think that the quality of life upgrades that they had on these laptops made them so interesting. An OLED display, fantastic speakers, which are something that we MacBook users usually like say. The Mac has great speakers. You don't have to bring a Bluetooth
and mics too.
Speaker and mics. You don't have to bring a Bluetooth speaker. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've been in a hotel room and I just open the laptop and let things play on it because it replaces the TV basically.
Same. And I've done on a pinch. I've done voice recording for the podcast on my MacBook. As long as I run some kind of, you know, de-echo processing or de-reverb, so it takes out the room acoustics at the end. It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. The OLED displays are fantastic. And
Oh yeah.
if that is something that you're really into, the G16, on top of the fact that it does have slightly better performance because it can actually hold a 4080 and a 4090, the G14's only max out at 4070, which still perfectly fine for most gaming. But one thing that I really enjoyed, when it comes to the gaming PCs right now, we're in an interesting place because with the Intel Core Ultra processors coming in, now it's becoming less about like hardcore performance and more about what can the integrated GPU do.
Right.
And so this question is so interesting because as I said in the G14 video, you have the ability, I should say, to turn off the dedicated graphics. You can turn off the 4070. And you could just straight up turn it off for better battery and all of that. But when you do that, technically, you're using a laptop version of an ASUS ROG Ally.
Exactly.
But with a better screen and all of the better battery and all that. So I was like, this is really interesting because, like, for the longest time, gamers, the PC quote unquote master race, I know they call themselves a bunch of stuff, but it's been always about
name.
It is. They always are all about like max FPS, max frame rate, max all of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's because of these little PC handhelds that we're being taught sort of a different way, or at least we're being taught it's okay not to have it. Like it's as long as you're having fun, it doesn't matter what the hardcore performance actually is. The fact that you also have the ability to go high frame rate with the GeForce card, that's great too. But being able to have the best of both worlds made it so interesting. Would I actually replace my MacBook with like a G14 or G16? It's so close to that. It's so close to that.
Is battery life still, I mean, what chip is this running for a CPU?
Depending on which one you get, the G14 is still using AMD's Ryzen set, so it is still that one. But it's still a great processor.
For sure.
And then the G16 is the one that they decided, let's go ahead and do a Core Ultra. So that one has the Core
Ultra 9.
So it is
Core Ultra on the 16 now. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is battery life? Yeah, I was going to say, because on the Mac, that's the thing, right? That keeps us ticking when you fly across from San Francisco to New York or something, or LA to Washington or whatever, you get like the whole flight and you still walk out with 30% left after editing, 4K video for like 4 hours or something.
Right. If you're using the graphics card, it's obviously going to be way less than what you might want. So that's just going to be the thing. I don't think NVIDIA anytime soon is trying to make like super efficient cards or anything.
Are you noticing an improvement with the Core Ultra though? Like on the 16 when you're like running just like maybe lightweight stuff?
Oh, 100%. Especially on the G16. Since it has a larger battery, it can go for quite a while. Yeah. So I think I got like something. I'm the kind that always has something playing in the background, so it's eating up battery. But going like 5-6 hours just like scripting and doing emails with YouTube in the background, that's still really impressive to me.
It's not bad. Yeah, that's good.
G14 obviously is going to be different, but it was still pretty good. Like if I went to a cafe for a few hours just to script and to do stuff, it would have been perfectly fine for that.
You know what I liked about the G14 that I saw, the one that had the optional big matrix in the back, right? Not the smaller, just, I think this is the original model that they came out with a few years back, was that, as you said, it's so understated, even with the matrix, because it was like a whitish color and it was just like, it didn't look like crazy lights and angles and I'm going to destroy you with my axe of a laptop. It was much more like, hey, I got a cool ultra thin, ultra light, very powerful laptop. Check me out, kind of thing. And I kind of dig that.
The most recent version of that laptop is still on sale, and it's routinely discounted. So if anyone out there is looking for like a really good light laptop that can handle a lot of stuff like work and play, I would say last year's G14 and G16 are still wonderful options. I actually just told a couple people to do that.
What are the prices on these new ones?
They're a couple $100 more than last year's edition. So if you remember MSRP on those, it'd probably be around like $17.99 for the G14 at the top spec. And then shouts out to Daniel Sin. He was actually looking at these laptops. He saw that the top of the line G16 at Best Buy can creep up to $3,000. So it can be a little expensive.
I mean, that's easy to do in Apple land as well. So,
that's fair.
Depending on what you do. But look, I think this is fascinating. And I really love the idea of, like, for me, it's I get some people, I'm like, I've got a gaming PC, like a tower or something at home, and I've got another computer for my work or my video editing, right? Like maybe a Mac, or maybe I'm running, like one of those dedicated creator PCs with DaVinci Resolve on it or whatever, right?
Right.
Cool. But to me, it's kind of hard to justify because I'm such a lightweight traveler to have two computers, right? So if I'm traveling, especially, like having a gaming PC has always seemed like overkill, but at the same time, having an ultralight sometimes isn't good enough, right? So it's like that's kind of why I dig, especially if you're in the PC world and you're not like invested in the Mac ecosystem, or you don't use Final Cut or whatever. Having that light and thin but powerful kind of creator vibe is cool. But a lot of the early creator PCs were very boring looking, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
They were just like, why would you buy that? And then now I feel like this kind of middle ground of like a gaming, but more subdued, but still kind of cool looking is a thing. And I feel like ROG, ASUS got it right.
It seems ASUS is the way to go. Yeah. And I think they are getting it right. And in the laptop space, it makes a little bit more sense to make these sort of adjustments, especially if they're going to add in, the great features like the speaker and the screen. On the flip side, and we're not talking about this phone in depth, but the ROG Phone 8 Pro, that was sort of a different story because it was the phone that was like for hardcore gamers.
Right.
It was for
and
them.
It's really kind of toned down now, right?
Very much so. And the people were not happy about that.
It still has a little matrix display in the back. What are you complaining about?
Yeah, and it blends in. And when it's off, you don't see it at all. Like I thought it was great. I miss the days though of when the ROG phones actually had like more than decent cameras. I do miss those days, but it's not a camera phone. That's not supposed to be.
No, but again, ASUS makes a camera phone version of that phone, right?
Yeah, essentially.
With the Zenfone 11. Pro, I think, or Ultra, or whatever it's called.
Ultra, yeah.
Ultra, yeah. So if you look at chassis wise, they're almost identical. Like buttons are in the same place. You're missing some of the gaming specifics, but I think it's interesting. You see that also with ZTE, the Nubia line, and the RedMagic line, where the Nubia Z60 Ultra is the same essential chassis as the RedMagic 9 Pro, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Like they share the same display, the same square, flat, monolith design. Camera systems are different. Of course, there's no cooling fan in the Z60 Ultra, and that there's one in the RedMagic. So it's kind of interesting to me how I think this is a perfectly acceptable compromise if you are not a huge manufacturer of phones and you want to do kind of a gaming version of a flagship, you know what I'm saying? Or the other way around, a flagship version of a gaming phone, whichever way you look at it. Right. So yeah, I think this, to me, I always thought if I'm going to get a PC, I've always been a big fan of ASUS, the ZenBook line especially.
Oh yeah.
And the dual display ones they've had and stuff. And so I've always, like, when they came out with this ROG 14 and the Zephyrus, I was like, this I could see I could see myself with that, which is like pretty cool.
And if anything, it's showing that OLED's starting to take over. Like we're starting to see OLED in a lot of laptops now, which is where it should be.
Screen, because I have the Lenovo Yoga Book 9i, I think, the one that has the two screens, that can be like, has an external keyboard that you can magnetically attach on. Right. I love that thing, but I would never be able to use it to edit photos because it's got that Galaxy S2 ultra bright, like fluorescent AMOLED color tone to it.
Yeah.
That's does. Like, I'm like, nothing looks right when I edit photos on that thing. And I honestly, I'm not enough of a PC person that I've dug around to see if I can change the color gamut or something. I'm sure there's something I can do, but at the same time, why is it like that by default? Like editing photos is something pretty routine on a PC. I mean, if you go lighter weight than that, you might as well use an iPad or something. And even editing photos on iPad is legit too. So I'm wondering how is that screen? Does it look like you could edit photos on there just fine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
ASUS does a really good job of adding in the features where you can change the screen color gamut for like various things.
Nice.
And then one of them is like, I don't remember if they call it the creator. It might be the creator color gamut, but like it does hit that whole DCI-P3 and whatnot.
Yeah.
But obviously one of the big things about it is obviously the gaming performance. And on an OLED, it's not that easy to achieve high refresh rate and also have G-Sync. That way you don't have screen tearing. It's not easy to do that. ASUS, and this is literally like out of their mouths. Like they were like, we partnered with NVIDIA and Samsung to make sure that this screen is not only bright, but it's OLED and it does G-Sync. And
Wow.
But it's the only display on a laptop that can actually do all that stuff in one display. So it's really impressive.
And
and HDR, of course. And at
120 hertz HDR. So wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds fun. ASUS and I haven't really had much of a relationship in the last couple of years. I don't know why. They just don't seem to be getting back to me on things I asked for them, like the phones. So, I'm just kind of like, they did send me years ago the original ZenBook Duo, the one with the screen above the keyboard, the slightly smaller one. And then, and I thought that was super cool. That thing was a beast, but obviously for good reason, right?
Right.
I remember being at Computex when they launched that, so I don't know how long ago that was. It's a while ago now.
Might have been a bit. That was the precursor to what they have now, which is the ZenBook Duo, like the actual 2-screen one. A lot like the Yoga that you were talking about.
Yeah, the Yoga one. Yeah, same. Yeah. Anyway, I'm still very fond. I hope if somebody from ASUS is listening, just ping me. I'd love to get in touch and get some devices again. Speaking of gaming. This is a good segue into one of the list of topics we have. I was talking about RedMagic just now, and RedMagic just launched a Bumblebee Transformers edition of the RedMagic 9 Pro, which is yellow, and it's exactly what you'd expect, and it's a perfect fit, I think, for that brand. What do you think?
I think that's great. You always give me a yellow. Like that's always going to be like one of my favorite colors on a phone. You were just talking about not getting ASUS products. I never get these branded ones. Like because OnePlus had the Genshin Impact phone, and now there's this, and I was like, I never get these branded phones.
So I sometimes do, and it really is kind of the luck of the draw, basically, because like I knew I could have asked Spencer at OnePlus for the Genshin Impact 12R because I saw it at MWC and wrote about it, and I was like, I'm pretty busy right now, and I already have the regular 12R, and I'm loving it. So there's got to be a creator out there who's dying to get their hands on this. They probably have a limited number because it's a limited edition.
That is true.
I don't want to be that person, but at the same time, what I'm trying to say is that you as a creator should have no problems asking them to get you one.
Well, I did reach out, and it was already like past the time, and it might already be for this one as well. But what I was telling them, I remember was, I guarantee you, half the people you sent that phone to, they don't even play Genshin Impact. I do, like I legitimately do.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So the interesting thing for me is most of the special edition phones I've received were from Realme. So anything from the Coca-Cola phone they did, I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I do remember that one. Yeah, I didn't get that one either.
I've got a few of the video game ones they've done that are super limited edition. They came in like crazy packaging, kind of like the Genshin 12R. It's like, you're like, wow, like this is so cool. And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know anything. I can't even remember the name of the games. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. I feel like you should have said this to someone else, but I did a cool unboxing video because the unboxing part was and then showing the icons.
Right.
And the wallpapers and stuff. So this seems to be the same deal. Like it's a 9 Pro that's got a black.
So cool.
I know. I love the black chassis with the yellow back. And what's very cool about the 9 Pro is that it's very similar in design to last year's 8 Pro, except 8 Pro last year had a little protrusion for each camera. And this is completely flush. I actually just received a 9R review unit, a white one, white and silver. And I still need to unbox it. Otherwise, I would have shown you on video here for those of you watching on Patreon. But that thing is even more of a monolith than it ever was because nothing protrudes anymore except for maybe the buttons. And it looks like you're holding like a futuristic, phone from like, I don't know, like Westworld or something. It's really, it's really cool.
I gotta give a
So
shout out to this boxing, this box content because it comes with a custom 165-watt GAN charger. Like it's kind of you don't hear that as in a box, no less. Like I don't think many people even have a 165-watt GAN charger anyway.
I
Like,
know. So they sell that as an accessory, I believe. That's why it's easy for them to bundle it in.
mhm.
But also, what's interesting here is that I think this is China only right now.
Yeah, it wouldn't
So
surprise me one bit if it was.
yeah, it's kind of a bummer though. You know, it looks so hot. I kind of dig it.
Well,
And
we don't have to dive too far into it, but I mean, I guess trademarks and copyrights are different in
uh,
China, you know.
yeah, like, yeah. Did they obtain a license legally for this? Who knows? And by the way, this is a 9 Pro Plus, so it's the top of the range model. I think
Mm,
the one they sent me is just a 9 Pro. But anyway, as related to that, since we're on RedMagic, they
mhm.
also launched a cooler called the Cooler 5 Pro, which is a MagSafe compatible or Qi 2 compatible in terms of the magnets, at least. It doesn't, I don't think it gets its power from the back of the phone. So I could be wrong because I need to try it out still. I haven't tested it yet. But it's a cooler for your phone, which is a bit weird because the RedMagic phones already have a built-in 20,000 RPM fan. So what's your take on that?
I think it actually makes so. Anybody who sees this product or sees the articles about it, they're like, "Why would a company like RedMagic make something for the iPhone?" Because it's
Well,
MagSafe
yeah, that's
compatible.
kind of who they're aiming for. But they sent me an adapter to put it on my RedMagic, like
Mm,
because the RedMagic doesn't magnet, so like they have a little plastic bracket, and I'm like,
they
what?
do, yeah.
Why? So you know what I'm actually thinking would be cool to do is since Hot Hardware, where I write my phone reviews, we do a lot of benchmarking. I was actually going to grab an iPhone and grab my S24 Ultra, phones that don't have fans, basically, and just see how much of an improvement we get on the sustained performance in the slingshot, not slingshot, the other one, the 3D mark tests,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wildlife extreme, because
Hmm.
that's what we test, and we can often see, it runs for about 20 minutes or 20 iterations, and so you can see like the processor losing speed as it heats up, right? Because
Hmm.
there's no fan on the fan ones, like the RedMagic, it stays at like 99% the whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how much of a difference it's going to make with the iPhone and with particularly with the Galaxy, because the Galaxy, it kind of went down to like 50 or percent or less or something when it got really hot.
And you know what? It does make sense. Like where I was going with that was like it does make sense to make this for the iPhone, given that Apple is trying to put AAA titles on things like
Yeah,
iPhones and whatnot. So
yeah,
like in a
absolutely.
way, it does make a lot of sense. It is an extra accessory, and if Apple's not gonna, I don't know if Apple even thought about like making a fan or a cooling
It's not
solution.
something they would do.
Yeah.
That's why the third party market exists. And apparently, I think it comes with a cable or something. You can plug it directly into the USB port and it just works, right?
Hmm.
So that's a pretty simple thing. I'm curious if it'll take the reverse wireless charging from the MagSafe. Do iPhones have reverse wireless charging? I own a 15 Pro Max and I don't even know that.
You know, I don't know that either. I wonder if it does.
Can you put your AirPods on your phone? Listen, folks who
I
are
don't
more
think you
iPhone,
can.
how is that not a thing after Samsung's been doing it for years?
Yeah, I don't
Because,
think that's a thing.
their main rival, I don't know. Okay, anybody listening right now, please go on Threads and or X, Twitter, whatever. Tell us what's happening here, because we're like a little. I feel like very iPhone illiterate right now. It's bad considering I have one. I could test this.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't have it because I remember people talking about how the USB-C port, it's nice to be able to charge their watches and their
Mhm.
AirPods. But if they were saying that, then that probably means that wireless is not a thing because they would have been saying that instead.
See, the way I was thinking, if it were to work, if it does work, I don't think the Apple Watch would work because it's got that rounded bottom and it really needs that special puck to be close to it.
Right.
That's been tested by a lot of people before, but for the AirPods, we know that they charge on any cheap charger. So
Hmm.
what I'm thinking is that if you put like the Samsung buds down on there, nothing happens because Apple's like, I recognize the device as not something I know, right? Typical Apple. Whereas if you put what I'm thinking is happening is you put AirPods on there, it kind of communicates somehow and says, "Oh, hey, I know you. Turn on a reverse." Like there's no switch in the settings for reverse wireless charging, but maybe it kicks in somehow.
Yeah, probably.
I need to try that now. Damn. And I don't have AirPods, so I need to find some AirPods to try it. But
I haven't used, it's kind of I'm not trying to disparage Apple in any way. I just think it's been nice these last few months that I haven't been using any Apple stuff other than my MacBook. So I'm actually kind of
that's kind of my everyday life. I'm on a MacBook all the time, and the rest of my world is not Apple, which is fine.
Well, because leading up to the end of last year, it was all I was about to say iWatch, Apple Watch, and iPhone.
And then we got Vision Pro on our feed for like 500 days.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to some other topics. Look, this RedMagic cooler thing is cool. I think, like I'm always on board for, people who want to use a regular phone to game. You shouldn't have to buy a gaming phone. Stick a cooler on there if you're really concerned. That seems like a good plan.
Yeah.
So Samsung rumors. Look, I'm going to read through them and put links in the show notes, and then we'll just kind of like have a meta conversation about where do you think Samsung's going in general with their products, especially their phones, because I feel like they're in a strange place right now, especially on their folding phones. So the news are, number one, we've got a Z Fold 6 rumor that says it's going to be thinner and lighter. Then we also have a rumor for Z Fold 6 Ultra. And this thinner and lighter actually might just be the Ultra. Then there's a rumor for a Z Fold Fan Edition and a Z Flip Fan Edition. And then finally, there's a rumor that the S24 Fan Edition will be coming out this year, but also coming out sooner, like in maybe before or at the same time as the folding phones in July. So what's your take on this? Like I think we all appreciate the Galaxy S24 line has been a solid product for Samsung this year. It's very iterative, but I have no complaints overall. I feel like they could have done a little more maybe on the Ultra because, we're all kind of like super high-end phone obsessed when you see what, Xiaomi 14 Ultra is doing and Oppo Find X7 Ultra is doing. But I think overall, I think we're happy, right? But I've been pretty meh about their folding phones that I went to Korea to play with last summer because, like, we've seen what the rest of the world has been doing, like Magic V2 from Honor, like OnePlus Open, aka Oppo N3, like even the Oppo N3 Flip, right? And the Motos, of course, the Razers. Like there's competition now, not just abroad, but in the US and Canada and North America. And so my question to you is, like, do you feel like I do about the folding phones that they really need to shift gears? Like, they've been a little too complacent on that front.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel that way, and I don't remember, was it even you? Someone was saying this during Korea, that they said the reason why they're doing such a big launch for the 5 is because, for the Flip 5 and the Fold 5, that is because things are going to change. Like, they need to sell all of these because they're going to do something radical next time. I'm trying to remember who said,
but it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of believe that because we've had these designs for the longest time at this point. Like, we're coming up on version 6. And I do think it's time for a change in terms of, especially the Fold, because the Flip did do a couple of good things with the new cover display and all that.
Yeah, the Flip cranked things up enough. The Flip just needs better cameras, but I'm happy with what they have right now.
Right. But an Ultra, like, do we really need an Ultra version? Can't we, like, we have to keep putting these like hyperbole terms on all of these phones. And then even then it just makes, okay, from two different angles. Now there's more choice, which is nice for consumers if they really want that Ultra. But for us, it's more work because we have more than one device.
Well, so here's what one of these articles, if you read them, will say, and I think it's valid, is like, okay, so theoretically, potentially, there would be a Z Fold 6 Ultra, a Z Fold 6, a Z Flip 6, a Z Fold Fan Edition, a Z Flip Fan Edition, a S24 Fan Edition, a series of Watch 7s, and a ring at
we knew
the
about
next.
Ring. Yeah.
Well, and a ring at the next Unpacked.
I'm so stressed out.
Do you know what that means for us? That is pure hell.
Yeah, it is. It's pure hell. Like all the manufacturers, we miss the days when we used to have lulls, and now lulls just don't exist because every manufacturer puts out so many things. We're always busy.
So here's the thing that I'm thinking might happen. They might pull the FEs out as a separate thing, kind of like, they had this mini announcement for the FEs last year.
Yeah, they did.
In September or something. So perhaps that would make sense. So basically the same workload as last year, but add the Ultra Fold phone and add the Ring to the Pi, which is already a lot. So
are you looking forward to what is hopefully a thinner device? Like,
yes,
I think
what I'm really looking forward to is a different form factor and a better camera system. Like, I do believe that, as much as I feel like last year was a disappointment, especially on the Fold side, especially after the OnePlus Open, which is the first folding phone that I've really been able to make my own, and I still use it alongside my Pixel. And if Pixel Fold 2 fixes the issues I had with Pixel Fold 1, which are obviously, well, we're never going to get the chips I want, but at least a better tensor chip, because this was the old tensor chip last year. And more importantly, I want less crease and less bezel. And maybe, like, I love the Passport form factor. If they want to keep that, I'm happy. But I'm just saying there's a few things they can do. But now that I've tasted the OnePlus Open and it's delivered such goodness, I hope that Pixel can inherit like 75% of that. And that way I can only have to carry one phone, JV, because I'm a Pixel person and I'm willing to go there because I now understand the magic of fold phones.
I feel kind of horrible because until you said Pixel Fold, I had completely forgotten about the Pixel Fold. Yeah.
No, I had two. We kind of mentioned it on the show recently. There were leaks and rumors about the Fold 2, and I was like, Fold. So I went and dug in my drawer, and I was like, oh, look, I have a Pixel Fold.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, let's update the software and run and use it for a few days. And I was just like, still super delighted, because when I went to Korea last year for Samsung, I had just received the Pixel Fold. And so I used the Pixel Fold for the whole trip, and I loved it. But I was like, I don't think I can switch yet. It's a little too janky,
right.
Too first gen. Like, so all this to say that one of the things that I'm really excited about for Samsung on the new Folds and Flips is that they still feel the most rugged in hand. Like, I got to give props to OnePlus and Oppo. The Open N3 feels like it could take a lot of abuse. Sure. I haven't tried that, but it could. I did stumble and fall with the Open in my pocket and fell on it. My whole, I'm a big person, body fell right onto concrete. No damage because it was in a case and in my pocket. But that probably was a lot of stress on the phone and no issues. But every time I touch a Z Fold, especially the 5, I'm like, that thing is indestructible. Like, it feels in my hands like there's nothing I can do to break that phone.
Right.
Whereas other folding phones like the Razr, the Pixel Fold is, I feel like, oh no, like, don't be too rough on this.
Right. The Pixel Fold especially, I do remember feeling that way about it.
And I think it comes from the fact that Samsung has all this head start of experience. That's why, like, I felt like they were throwing it all away last year with this very incremental update to the Z Fold 5. I was just like, ah.
Well, I mean, far be it for me to say that we're going to get the same story with the Fold 6 and the Flip 6. I hope not, right? But that's what happened with the S24, because it was ultimately an AI update, right? Because it's the year of AI.
Oh, God. And now you get it on your S23 as of last week. Look, I at least make it thinner, lighter, and change the form factor to more like a OnePlus Open form factor, or even be cool and crazy and do Passport like Pixel, like Google. I have a feeling, though, that we're going to not get that. We're going to get, I think everything is going to kind of converge towards the open form factor. Because if you look at the Chinese right now, right? Like, last week, we got the Oppo X Fold 3, right? And if you look at them, they're all pretty much the same form factor. It's finally gelled, right? Remember how Oppo had the kind of smaller form factor, and then, Samsung, the tall and skinny, and then we had Pixel with the passport format, and then even Xiaomi and Vivo were kind of doing regular phones, but that folded open, and then Honor came along, and I feel like in the last 6 to 9 months, it's gelled into it's a normal phone that just happens to open, and we're trying to make it as thin as we can so that it feels like a normal phone that you just happen to open. And I kind of so dig that, JV. I really do.
I think the same way. It's almost interesting that a phone manufacturer that makes an open style folding device, that they would actually have the mentality of, what if we think about it this way? What if we want to make it so that you never feel like you have to open the phone? But then if you do, then you have a big screen.
And that's really how I use my open. If I'm in a place where things are a little precarious, I need to be more attentive to my surroundings. I'm moving around the world, not sitting down, not relaxing, like at the airport or whatever. I use it closed and generally more or less one-handed. But then once I have time to kind of like breathe, I just open that up, and it's that very Zen moment where you almost hear the breathing sound, the exhale as you open it up, and you're like, I'm going to have a better experience now with all this screen real estate, and I can hold it with two hands and be safe doing so. And having that flexibility is a game changer. Like, I've watched Netflix on, download Netflix on my folding phone. No need to find a tablet anymore. It's a little small, but if you look at the size of an economy class display on most US airlines, it's actually not bad, and it's definitely a better quality display.
Right.
And then I've written on my Fold, which I've done on a big screen bar phone before, but it's much more of a pain in the ass, right? So I've done some things on my Open that I never thought I would do on a phone, and now I get it. Like, because initially I just never kind of, I think with the Z Folds that Samsung made, it never stuck with me because of that tall, skinny form factor. And then
I agree,
Pixel didn't stick with me because it felt fragile, and the chip, it was so hot, and poor battery life and all that problems that, they tried. First try, great. Love the form factor, the passport thing. But then the Open was like, oh my God, this is it. And so I kind of want to continue seeing that. And also, we're going to get an Open 2 this year. We've got to get an Open 2 this year.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
So I think it's going to heat up. And, it's kind of funny because people say there's no innovation in phones, but I don't know. Like, I see this and I'm like, guys, like, this is innovation. And not only that, but like, that Nubia phone with a speaker, that really affordable one with two headphone jacks on it that we saw at MWC. Like, okay, so it's a bar phone. It doesn't look that different, but it's a different design. And unlike the weird phones from like Ulefone and, all these other Doogie and like whatever the other brands are, Blackview and etc. Right? It's that these are going to be a little more mainstream and available. Like, Nubia phones. Yeah, they're Chinese, but I think they're sold in Europe. So, it's not like they're more global focused, right? So I don't know. I think there's stuff going on. Like, you look at this Bumblebee phone, like, come on.
True. Do you think we're actually at a place now where you can have a more affordable fan edition version of a foldable though? Like, are we actually at a point now where we can make a more affordable version of these devices?
So look, I think Moto showed us the way with the Razr 23, right? The Non Plus. And
true.
Look, it has a lot of, it's scaled down. It's like, look, Nothing Phone 2A. I love it, but it's not a Nothing Phone 2. Like, the reality is you're still getting a scaled down experience. I think there's room for that. I think there's room for that in the folding phone world.
Well, because all the foldables that we've had up until now, they've all been like really up there in price.
Exactly. So like, my point is that if anybody's in a good position to bring something a little more affordable and reduced in spec to the market, it's Samsung. We've seen that already from those Chinese brands we just mentioned, Ulefone, Blackview, Doogee, etc. Like we saw, they had a whole bunch of flip phones at MWC. Me and Michael Fisher went on a run across the show floor to find them all and photograph them all. It was really, really great. But the point is, they exist, but that they're not going to be as reliable. They're not going to be as nice. Even ZTE Nubia had a folding flip phone at MWC that's coming to North America, and it's relatively affordable, but it's still like 600. It's like, I think what I want to see now is 450, 500 for a folding flip phone. That would be the dream.
Like
fan edition, even $599 fan edition folding phone from Samsung. A flip.
I could see that.
I don't think the Fold needs to be a fan edition, because that is kind of a high-end product to start with. Like the audience for that, it's kind of the same audience as the Note was, Like, we want the best. We're just not going to sacrifice anything. So I feel like there's potential, but I think the FE flip makes more sense. So let's see what happens. And I definitely want, I hope Moto keeps going and give us a Razr Plus and Razr 2024 that are iterative, and like they need to iterate a little more on what they've done that was good, because that's how you might not improve too much in terms of the overall experience, but you will improve on reliability, you'll improve on materials, you'll improve on software, stuff like that, right? It's the same with Pixel, right? I think that's why I'm actually very excited about Pixel Fold 2, because it's gonna hopefully fix a lot of the ills of the original and make it something that we can actually say, hey, you know what? This is a contender now, So in the same way as we say, yeah, Pixel 8 Pro is a contender, or Pixel 7 Pro. Remember when the Pixel 6 series came out and we were all unanimous and like, yeah, that's it. They finally nailed it, right?
Yeah.
And now they've nailed it since. Like ever since then, we've had good phones from them. Sure, there's been issues with the 6. Yeah, of course. I had a 6 Pro for a long time, and it was hot and bad reception and all this stuff. But I lived with it, and now I've got an 8 Pro, and I'm happy with that. I had the 7 Pro for a while too. But I think, to me, this is the kind of where I'm at. I'm like, this news from Samsung is like, there's a lot of plausibility to it, but I don't see the FEs coming out at the same time as the other phones in July. And the Ring and stuff, because that seems to be too much. And I'm not sold on the idea of a Z Fold FE. I think a Z Flip FE, yes.
Yeah, I agree with you there. A Z Fold FE. I'm trying to think who would even be the demographic for that kind of thing.
Especially if they make a Z Fold 6 Ultra. Because we know that, in a way, maybe the Z Fold 6 non-Ultra will be kind of like
an FE-ish, like they're just kind of going in the different direction of really niching up rather than down.
So maybe, what's the price right now for the Fold 5? $14.99?
Something like that, The
so
price of a laptop.
Imagine they go down to $12.99 to the price, or $13.99, the price of an S24 Ultra for the regular Fold 6. And then the Ultra is now $19.99 and maybe has like the same cameras as the Ultra.
Okay, I'm okay with that. But
see what I'm saying? Like, imagine that if Samsung takes all their expertise to make a thinner, lighter, and manages to put the camera of the S24 Ultra in a folding phone, and then, they can't do that for $17.99, so it's now $19.99. I'm on board, because I tell you what, Samsung can charge a premium. They're the market leader, at least in North America. 1. 2, the phones are all sold subsidized, so whatever. People are just going to get them on a plan anyway.
That is true.
3, they have the Open to contend with now. And I'm sorry, but the Open eats the Z Fold 5's lunch. Like, it just obliterates the thing. Yeah. So to me, that's why, like, they know they need to keep something a bit more affordable in the line for the Fold. So the Fold 6 would be that, and then the Ultra would go all out. And then I don't see a room for an FE at that point.
Yeah, I agree with that. So probably Flip and then a S24 FE, which I would look forward to as well. The FEs are always interesting to take a look at.
The FEs are always interesting, 100%.
The only thing that I would say is if you want the S24 cameras, S24 Ultra cameras and a Z Fold 6 Ultra camera, I would, if that ended up being true, then I would really hope that the S25 Ultra cameras actually upgrade the freaking hardware, because I am sick of this hardware. Like, I get it, they do a really good job, and it's the Apple way of just like improving on processing and stuff like that. But you mentioned it earlier, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. I will always gravitate to the Xiaomi phones every year simply because they actually think about the hardware.
I mean, look, I took the Oppo Find X7 Ultra to Antarctica with me in February, and because it's the best camera I had, right, for a phone, and it was amazing. But I have to say, if I had to, now that I have the 14 Ultra from Xiaomi, like, yeah, this is it. Like, even better. And you're talking, you know, but the variable aperture for me is a killer app. Once you have a big sensor, once you have a 1-inch type sensor, you need variable aperture, because otherwise it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, the Find X7 Ultra does a decent job with its 1-inch type sensor on the main camera, especially in low light with f over 1.8. But you can see aberrations on the edges.
Right.
You know, you start having that super sharp depth of field, which is great for some things. But when you're trying to just take a photo in general of something, anything that's in the foreground just gets focused on, and then everything else in the background is blurry, or the other way around. And having that variable aperture at that point makes a huge difference. And like, we're nitpicking here because, you know, most of people are just used to a Pixel 8 Pro or S24 Ultra or an iPhone 15 Pro Max. Like, imagine, if you will, audience, this is a whole level above that.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's hard for you to wrap your head around, but it's the thing. And that's what we're talking about. Like, you're right that the S Ultra next year, the 25, will have to crank things up a notch, right?
Yeah. And I think the hardware is where they need to do it, because we have so many cool, I say this all the time, there are so many cool things happening in smartphone cameras right now in tiny sensor technology. Like, we have the Lydias from Sony, the stack sensors and whatnot. Why aren't the big hitters, the heavy hitters, taking advantage of this technology? And it baffles my mind that people like Samsung and Google aren't trying them out at the very least.
But it's because the market in which they're primarily competing is not a market that cares.
I agree with that. But at the same time, if they used it, I think people would care. It's chicken and the egg.
No, look, you're 100% right. But you're also talking for us and for my audience who are early adopters, tech-savvy folk, right? I think that we're a special case. And Apple, you know, is not going to proliferate models, right? Mm-hmm. So in that sense, they're going to stick with what's the best we can do that's going to satisfy our audience, you know? And that's why they only just did a periscope lens this year. Like,
and it wasn't even that great, in all honesty.
No, it's not that great. It's I mean, I'm still very impressed with my iPhone's video. Yeah. And I have to say the user experience in terms of like fluidity of an iPhone is still wow. Mm-hmm. And the apps are so much better for social media, 100%. All that is true. That's why I have an iPhone. But frankly, that's not good enough for me of a reason to make that my main phone. Like, I've also shot now, you know, the social media apps being worse on Android is always a problem. But I've shot video on some of these Android phones, and I was like, this is really great. Like, it's not iPhone great, but it's like, I don't really care at this point. Great, you know?
Yeah. The Apple side, it's really just giving people the option to actually go into a pro thing, because the moment you put the Blackmagic Design app on an iPhone, you have
that's what I use for video.
Yeah, you have every tool that you need.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, let's switch to some more news. OnePlus, a couple of OnePlus news here. We've got the AI eraser tool. So finally, some AI tools for your OnePlus coming to the 12, 12R, Open, 11, and a few others. Great. Yep. I'm happy about it. I'm waiting for the upgrades. I'm going to try it out. This is an announcement. We don't have the stuff yet to try out, so stay tuned, right?
They didn't show like an example, right? Like, because I would have loved to have seen. They did? Oh, okay. I thought
they did. Maybe I'm wrong.
I got the email that had the announcement in it, but I didn't see. Like,
no, not in that. Didn't they have like a teaser or something?
Oh, well, I just missed it then. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's one thing that was announced this week. So if you have a recent OnePlus device, keep your ears and eyes peeled for a new update with that. We're not sure if it's going to be an Oxygen OS update or photo app update. Who knows? But more importantly, there's a phone that's going to be coming to North America as the Nord N40. I'm calling it now, called the Nord CE4, CE for the European models, N for the North American models, as you know. And this phone is interesting. It's a kind of a new design direction for OnePlus, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the first thing that kind of caught my eye was Snapdragon 7 Gen 3. Cool to see those. Cool to see those processors being used. But yeah, no, it does look pretty interesting.
And also coming out in India, this one. So 24,999 and 26,999 Indian rupees. God, rubles, Russians. That's hilarious. Let me mark that down. Okay. Like most of, as you said, Snapdragon 7 Gen 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because they just launched the 7S Gen 3, I guess.
Was it 7
Plus Gen? No, 7 Plus Gen 3.
Right, I think it was 7 Plus.
Right. So they just launched a 7 Plus Gen 3, and they launched a OnePlus Ace phone with that. That's cosmetically identical to this CE4. So it's interesting that the European and Indian model are getting the 7 Gen 3, and then the Chinese model is getting the 7 Plus Gen 3. How weird is that?
The newest stuff usually does come out in China before anything else. Who's to know what the Nord, what was it, the N40 that it probably will be?
I'm assuming this is going to become the N40.
Yeah, who knows which one that one's going to get? But if it's a 7 series, I'm actually kind of happy about that because we're in earlier Nords using like even
$695.
Yeah,
in the US,
and they were like okay, they were fine.
That's fine. The problem is also they didn't have an ultra wide on the Nords in the US, so this does, I think, have an ultra wide, which is exciting. Yeah,
and they still remain the only manufacturer in the US that has fast charging,
and a 50 megapixel camera with OIS. So I'm wondering how much you're going to cut that down for the Nord N40. But I think aesthetically we're looking at the Nord N40. We might see a different set of specs, and most importantly, the Nord N20 had an AMOLED at 60 hertz. Then the Nord N30 went back to IPS LCD with a massive chin at 120 hertz, and this is obviously an AMOLED again. So I'm hoping we get the AMOLED, because that's the thing that I was disappointed last year with the N30, simply on the change of display. Going back to an IPS was like, ugh, for me anyway.
Yeah, so, I mean, we OLED everything, as we were saying at the beginning of the show.
Exactly, you got it. All right, so that's OnePlus, and then we've got a few little bits and pieces. So Realme GT6, we've had a GT5 last year, a GT5 Pro, which by the way is a really fantastic phone, China only. It's the highest end phone that like Realme's ever done. And I got one. It basically is almost identical to OnePlus 12. It's got wireless charging. It's got 8 Gen 3. It's got triple camera with a 3x periscope telephoto, etc., etc. It does cut some corners with the ultra wide only being an 8 megapixel. And I think there was another little change, like the display is a smaller display than the OnePlus 12. But overall, that phone for Realme was incredible. And the GT5 was a bit of a bummer last year because the GT5 non-Pro was the 240 watt charging, right? And it didn't charge as fast as the GT3 before it at 240 watt because it had a bigger battery.
Yeah.
So if I want to do a charging test and I want to show off the fastest charging right now, I still pull out the GT3. So this GT6 leak is the big unknown here, is whether this is going to be the 240 watt phone for this year, right?
Yeah, that is fair. I never get to actually use. Don't you have to use a converter here in the US or something to be able to get 240?
To get the maximum speed, yes.
Yeah.
But you know, honestly, I travel to Europe enough times that I keep that charger in my bag, so I just plug it in and it works, and then I get to experience. Honestly, the difference, I think it charges at 200 watts instead of 240. When it's like in the US, so it's still like insanely fast.
Yeah, which is still great. Don't get me wrong.
And I carry that charger with me all the time. You know why? Because I can charge any BBK group phone with it at the maximum possible speed, right?
Right.
Because they'll scale down to like 66 watt, 100 watt, whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One other thing that is interesting about this phone, I mean, I know that it's been showing up in a lot of other ones, but this is my first time seeing Snapdragon 8S Gen 3.
Yeah, so actually the first phone that was announced with the 8S was the Motorola, the Chinese version of the Moto we're about to talk about.
Mhm.
So last week or the week before when they announced the 8S Gen 3, immediately right after, Moto came out and said, hey, the X50 Pro or whatever, Moto Edge X50 Pro for China is the first phone in the world with 8S Gen 3. And this would be the second.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that that Qualcomm, well, any of these chip manufacturers, I really would be making like, oh, so we have this chip, and we're just going to scale it back a little, like it's their FE version in a way.
Yeah,
like it's
but
interesting that they would do it.
I talked with someone. It was Kate Kozic last week. She was on the show, and we were saying like it's really confusing, right? Because for a while it made sense. You had the 8 series and the 7 series, and then you had the generation every year that increased by one, and then you had the plus for the models that were like a little extra special, right?
Right.
And that made sense. Like to me, the 8S Gen 3 should be an 8 Plus Gen 2.
I agree.
See what I'm saying? Because it's muddying the waters. And people are going to say, well, you know, the CPU is very much closer to the 8 Gen 3 than the 8 Gen 2, but the GPU is more like the 8 Gen 2. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So they could have picked either way. They could have gone either direction. And to me, 8 Plus Gen 2 would make more sense.
It was just so funny to me when we were getting the info on the 8S Gen 3, just thinking, wow, just how much are these guys splitting hairs every day? Like, it's
and
so
also,
weird to me.
I can see one argument in favor of doing the 8S Gen 3 is that, you know, they came out after the 8 Gen 3. So naming it 8 Plus Gen 2 would be weird, right?
Sure, but at that
But
point,
the S,
it's literally semantics at that point.
Why S? Like, I know they couldn't call it 8 minus. That would sound weird, right?
And I would actually be okay with that.
Well, me too. But you know, from a marketing perspective, that would never fly because it implies it's inferior, right?
Yeah,
whereas we all know it's inferior compared to an 8 Gen 3. So like,
it literally is. Like that's the funny part.
It was designed to be inferior.
And you can't use the word mini for something like that because it's the same nanometers and like it's weird. Like the splitting hairs, like I was saying.
It's slightly painful, to be honest with you. But look, the reality is, you're right. It could be one of the very first phones. But I'm curious to see, you know, there's been demos of 320 watt charging and other crazy things like that. I'm wondering, like, you know how Techno, I think it is, or Infinix have 260 now, 260 watt? They announced that recently.
Yeah.
I think Nick Gray at Fandroid did a video where he did the charging comparison between the GT3 240 watt, the original 240 watt, and the new Infinix or Techno at 260. And it was just like, holy crap ball, that's even faster. It was like 6 minutes to full charge or something.
That's wild.
So 320 watt, I'm like 3-4 minutes to full charge. I'm kind of waiting for something like that to drop with this phone because notice that the leak does not mention anything about charging speeds.
That's true. That is true. That's
so we've got everything else in there.
That's the piece of info that they're holding close to the chest for sure.
I know, for sure. So we mentioned Moto a little while ago there. And so we're expecting this year Moto Edge Plus again, flagship from Moto. Last year's 2023 model was pretty damn great.
Yeah, very solid.
It kind of flew under the radar. But the one that really flew under the radar for me last year, to be honest, was the Edge 2023 Non-Plus. Nobody talked about that phone, and that phone was super awesome. Like, that phone was like wireless charging, metal frame, you know, vegan leather back, a good processor, good camera, actually a decent camera for Moto. Not as good as the Edge Plus, but definitely better than anything else they make. Like thin, just sexy, like, and not too expensive. And now, right now, you can buy it every day for $399. Like, why would you buy a Moto G of any kind? You know what I'm saying? Or, I mean, okay, we could pull back and zoom back and say, why would you buy a Moto G of any kind when the Phone 2a exists from nothing?
Yeah, that's true.
And when, more importantly, the OnePlus 12R exists for $399.
Yeah,
because you can trade in like a piece of wood that you've lit on fire, and they will give you the $100. So, you know, I mean.
Or a blown up. That was the joke you kept making, right? It was a blown up like Note 7 or something.
Oh yeah, right. No, it was Michael Fisher who made the joke at the open announcement. Like when we were having the briefing, he was like, "So if I find an old like flip phone from 2000 and light it on fire and send it to you, will I get my $100?" And Spencer was like, "Yes."
On the record, yes.
It's official, guys. So at the time, that was $200 for the open, and it's still valid. You can buy an open right now and send a lump of coal and get you $200.
Right.
But anyway, so Moto has also announced a Edge, like high-end Edge phone for China with the 8S Gen 3. We just talked about that.
Right.
And then the next shoe is dropping. Now, we know the US models are coming. We don't know yet what they're going to look like, but a very good indication is always the Edge numbered series in Europe. Last year was Edge 40 series. This year is Edge 50 series. And the Edge 50 now has a Pro model announced officially in Europe. And what's interesting about this is that maybe they'll make an Ultra, because this only has a 7 Gen 3. It doesn't have an 8 series Snapdragon like the Edge 40 Pro had last year.
Well, they could do that. But what if they stick
could
with
go
the
up from there?
They could go up from there, but what if they stick with the 7 Gen 3 and this turns out to be like an affordable
awesome
flagship?
Phone? Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, 1220p AMOLED, 144 hertz refresh. It's got a 50 megapixel main sensor with OIS. It's got 2000 nits brightness, f of 1.4 aperture on the main camera. It's got a 3x telephoto. It's got and vegan leather and looks hot. Like, oh,
it's got
this
these,
could be an edge. This could be an edge for us.
Which phone am I thinking of? This has like Find X3,
Find X5 Pro and Find X3 Pro vibes.
Yeah, it really does. With this sort of like melding, like it's just a very smooth transition to the cameras.
125 watt charging and 50 watt wireless, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. 4500 milliamp hour battery, IP68. That, to me, this reads like flagship the whole way. Of course, it's also in India, and in rupees, it's 31,999 and 35,999, which is like $300-400. God, the prices for phones in India and China are just blowing my mind. Think about this. This is like, well, I guess OnePlus 12, right? 12R, but 12R doesn't have wireless charging. So
12R doesn't. Phone 2A does not either.
But you know what's really interesting? Even though I'm down on the Moto Gs lately because they're too expensive and kind of crappy, especially plasticky, and the software has all these ads now and stuff. I got the G Power 5G for 2024 here, and it's got OIS on the camera, even though it doesn't really help them. And it has wireless charging, which is like for a $300 quote unquote budget phone, it's not too bad.
I still have to test that one out. I do have it here somewhere.
I just unboxed it the other day and kind of briefly played with it. The camera is potatoes, but you expect that on Moto G. This is a problem. Like Moto G used to roll the rooster. What the hell, Moto? When we see this stuff, we're like, come on, maybe keep the pricing of the Edge a little higher in North America because you have to, because inflation and markets and certifications with the carriers. Like, make this phone available for $599 or $699 in the US, right? And then give us, the Moto Gs you have right now, remove all the bloat adware, improves the camera software, and sell them for $50 less, like $249 for that Moto G Power 5G. With wireless charging, OIS on the camera, all the stuff it has, it sounds to me like a really great deal if the software wasn't full of ads. Yeah, they don't even change the hardware. They could just change the price and improve the software a little bit and be competitive again. And it's kind of unfortunate to me that they're not doing that. Yeah,
around $300. It should be, you're right. It should be like sub $250, or even if it's like a straight up $200 phone with the worst camera, the other features make it okay.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see how this develops, like whether we get a variation of this in the US anytime soon, if there's only one Edge this year in the US and this is it. I'd be very curious, but I'm a big fan of Moto because I believe in them. It's just sometimes they just get it wrong, and the G series lately, like lately, they've done great on the flagship side and on the folding phone side, I think. But the G series is being left to rot, and we need to fix that.
Well, maybe we'll be able to tell if this Edge is coming to the US. There might be a trip to Chicago in our future.
I'm looking forward to it. I like Chicago. So nothing is launching something, haha, on April 15th. No, April 18th. So, hey, you know what? I think earbuds. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm excited.
I love
actually
the earbuds.
exactly. And I don't know if you've talked about these on the show. I actually have the box over here because I knew we were going to talk about this. Have you tried anything from CMF?
No, I asked Jane to send me some CMF stuff. She goes, "Oh, we don't have a lot of those." And I'm like, "Okay, well, maybe I should just let it go." Are they good?
I'm about to unbox these. I got this one and the watch that
the
they
watch.
put out a
Cool.
while ago. But what I really want from CMF is that neckband earbud because I don't see neckbands
Oh
anymore.
my God, they still make neckband earbuds?
Yeah. And it looks cool, especially in this like crazy orange that they have. But I'm going to try them out later. And for how cheap they are, because these products are available on Amazon and they're like sub $100.
You can buy them in the US officially on Amazon? Are you kidding? I should just buy them.
These buds not yet. Soon. But they will be. They will be on sale in the US.
Okay,
the watch is on sale, and that's sub 150, I think, which is pretty good.
I'm gonna email Jane. Jane, if you're listening, I love you.
But if this is what they're doing in a sub brand, and we already love what the earbuds looked like up until now, and the performance was pretty solid, I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to whatever audio products Nothing puts out. It's how I used to feel about OnePlus for a while. They had great audio products, even if their phones were like kind of meh.
I'm still listening to my Buds 2 Pro, and I recently got the Buds 3s, and I have to say both of them are still very, very solid. But after some EQing in app, but I still feel my ear 2s are better.
I do love them. It's just the battery life could have been better. That's the only thing I had wrong with those.
Yeah, I don't use my earbuds for long things. It's generally like I'm going to the store, walking a few blocks, at a time. So like literally it takes me 2 weeks to go through my batteries. Because I don't like on an airplane, I'll wear these Sony headphones that are noise canceling and all that good stuff. So for me, it's not that big of a deal, the battery life, but you're right. Honestly, I think the OnePlus Buds 3 were a pleasant surprise, 50% less money. And pretty much the same thing. You lose wireless charging. That's it.
I had I was about to say our niche features that we want in these earbuds. For you, I know it's wireless charging. For me, I feel like it's even more niche. I miss the Zen mode that they have.
Oh, that's gone? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because the Zen mode, especially the kind where, like, even if the earbuds are not connected to anything, you can just hold. You can just
that's right.
Yeah.
They don't have that anymore. Oh, not on the 3.
It's a pro feature apparently. So I'm like, okay,
okay, that's a bit disappointing. But overall, I'm pretty happy with them. And I'm definitely looking forward to whatever Nothing comes out with on April 18th.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to try to use these. Actually, I'm going to be running a 5K tomorrow, and I might have these on.
Oh, cool! You should let us know how it goes.
Yeah, and I would need to use these because I came to a conclusion. I know that they've been out for a while, but have you tried the crazy Bose like open ultras, like the ones that look like an earring on your ear?
I have not.
They're completely open earbuds.
I heard about those. Yes.
Yeah. They're great. I think they're wonderful everyday earbuds, especially if you don't like it, like as a background thing and whatnot. But for running, not really something that I would use because the wind, like it's not going to cut wind noise, but it's also bad because since they're in your ear a kind of weird way, the wind actually like backboards into your ear because there's like a piece of plastic there that's like catching the wind and then throwing it into your ear. So running with those, not cool. So looking forward to trying out the CMFs for the run tomorrow.
Keep us posted, JV. We need to wrap up. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, all your various social media handles, your YouTube channel, that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm on every platform, although I'm the lead. I haven't tweeted or X'd. What the heck is the word now? I haven't tweeted in so long.
I say tweet.
I'm on all the platforms at JV Tech Tea. That's JV, who loves tech and loves to drink tea. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me everywhere. There's a lot of stuff coming up I'm happy that I'm able to sort of do more than just smartphones. It's laptops, it's actually cameras and stuff like that. So there's a lot of really fun stuff coming up on my YouTube channel, especially since I have a ton of travel coming up. So look forward to some travel-centric tech reviews coming up.
Me too. I love your work, JV. Thanks for
Thank
doing
you.
all the great videos you do. And folks, you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl, TNKGRL. Like the comic book character, just drop all the vowels. That's my handle everywhere. Twitter, Threads is kind of where I spend most of my time now. There is Insta, of course. There is Blue Sky, believe it or not. Although I'm not sure I'm going to stick around there. It's pretty quiet. For those of you who are there, though, I'm going to try to stick around. And then, of course, you know where the podcast is, mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on all the major platforms. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Tell your friends. If your app lets you review or rate the show, please consider doing that. It helps. And then there's a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. There's some unboxing videos there and stuff, roughly monthly right now. And check it out. You know how YouTube works. So like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment. You can comment about the podcast as well. And if you want to help me out, there is a patreon.com/tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. There's a very simple, there's a tier there for just supporting me. And then there's a tier there for a video version of the podcast. I lowered the price to $5 a month. I'm hoping more of you sign up. You get it in advance, usually the day before. And you get to watch us, sometimes hold devices, but you get to see our faces. It's a little more personal. Sometimes I leave bloopers in there. And I when I go over majorly, I just leave the extra content in there for you. So you get some extra stuff. So consider helping me out if you can. If you don't want to do Patreon, there is a one-time donation thing you can do through PayPal. There's a link in the show notes to my website. Click on it. It'll take you to a PayPal button. Buy me a coffee or buy JV a tea. If you say it's for JV, I'll send him a gift card or something. And also, I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And then JV, thanks so much again for being my guest on the show. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to talk, and it always rekindles my mobile tech love.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll definitely have you on the show in the future again, and folks will have another show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.